So Bucky, Jason Todd, one of my ex-boyfriends. Good morning. Y'all ready for 3 distilleries in a single day? Because I kind of am. This is gonna be crazy, but like I said, they're all not super far from each other, so let's get to. So I haven't been able to even have my morning coffee yet, but I have edited my video for today. This is the earliest I have been able to do this in a long time, and things are downloading, uploading for the other stuff, so I am in a decent spot, honestly, which is great for recording. I am right now just slurping my morning coffee because I need to get changed and get out for going to go see all the bourbon. Because like the first drive is like almost like it's an hour and 15 right now based off of what it looks like with traffic. So I am pretty much on schedule for heading out. I'm dressed. I don't even need one of my bigger coats right now. I'm just wearing my LL Bean, or grab my LL Bean. And everything's just peachy keen, honestly. And I'm excited to go check out these new distilleries. I've never been to them before. I've just seen them a couple of times on different drives, specifically Jephthah, because I'd always see it when going to the airport. So the first stop was Kentucky Artisan, and this was kind of a quaint little building. Turns out it used to be a dairy manufacturer specifically for ice cream, which I like because I come from dairy farmers, actually. You walk in, and then for the tour, we actually started off in a speakeasy where we got a highball, which is bourbon and ginger ale, and that was a pretty good drink. And this was just kind of decorated with a couple of different like bourbon related things. We also learned a bit about the history of this distillery. So Kentucky Artisan is actually one that's more of a distributor than it is a like manufacturer. Like you are typically not going to find Kentucky Artisan, like they're just now starting to make their own. Instead, they distill for people. They will take different companies' mash bills and create them. The owner of the company was Steve Thompson, and he actually worked for the same company that owned Woodford. So he had worked for Woodford, retired, and wanted to get back into the game. So he started making his own bourbons, kind of really helping others make their own bourbons. One of those people was actually the people that make Jefferson. The owner of Jefferson's was like, oh, he would buy up different barrels similar to what you'd see with like Preservation, and he liked it so much, but those barrels, that at that point they were starting to run low, so they started making their own, and this is where you get Jefferson and Jefferson Reserve and Jefferson at Sea, which y'all have probably seen. And so in the actual facilities, they had a couple of cypress fermentation tanks, which is always really nice to see. These were about 80 years old, apparently. We did not find out who had owned them previously. Maybe it was Castle and Key. Who knows? A lot of the distilleries that did not survive the bourbon bust had these wooden fermentation tanks. They also do have some of the metal fermentation tanks in the back, but those are not nearly as fun to see. Then they also, of course, had the still, which you can see the Jefferson because that is their main company. And like, of course, it was Van Dome because of course it is. We also, while we were in there, got to taste some of the White Dog, which definitely was really smooth, even though what we were drinking was a rye, which kind of surprised a lot of people, but did not surprise me since at James E. Pepper, I tried some White Dog that was rye and you could not tell that it was a rye. Then once we walked into the bottling section, we actually saw this huge sculpture of a shark, and his name is Jefferson, like the distillery, and you can actually track him, and I have that up there. And so we had a couple other different versions. They had Whiskey Row, which I actually liked a lot, as well as some of the different Jefferson Reserves, which were pretty good, and I did like their Jeffersons at Sea. I do recommend, but all of that's pretty expensive, and like with Jefferson at Sea, the problem with it is it's such a big collector's item that makes me a little bit more hesitant to go for, because collector's items are always iffy. So finished that tour, had a lot of fun. There was somebody else who was working through their passport, and it was just, everybody was super knowledgeable because this was not nobody's first time. And this is also the first time I've ever gone to a distillery that was more on the distribution side, or like the private labeling side, where they were the private labelers. So yeah, that was kind of fun, and I enjoyed their whiskeys. And now I've got to figure out where I'm going to go to eat before I head over to Bullet. I also didn't talk beforehand because I was running a little bit late because I accidentally turned the wrong way when I was getting off of the freeway, because like Google Maps did not tell me which exit to get off, like what exit number to get off at. So for lunch slash brunch, I found a place that I forgot the name now, but honestly, the breakfast burrito was so, because I love me a breakfast burrito, and if I see it on the menu, I will get it. And what I liked about it was they had almost like a candied bacon. What I didn't like is you just had chunks of cheese. Like if you're going to put cheese in a breakfast burrito, you put it in while you're scrambling the eggs, not as you're like making the burrito. So you just have this like strip of cheese in there. I've now made it to Bullet. Interesting drive. Google Maps, sometimes I'm like, what the heck are you taking me on? But it worked out. So we're here. I've got about 10 minutes before the tour starts. So yeah, let's go inside and see what's up. And I'm curious because I've been to, like, Bullet I know is a larger corporation, and I've been to one of the distilleries that they own. So I've tried their bourbons before at that distillery, but I'll be curious to see what this one's like. So before the tour, I ended up getting their S'mores Old Fashioned, which is one of their seasonal cocktails, and it was pretty good. They used chocolate bitters with it, and overall, it was a good old fashioned. I do like the idea of soaking that marshmallow in the bourbon afterwards, like after it was charred. That was pretty good. Or really looking outside, you could see this greenhouse, which apparently is actually maintained by University of Kentucky students, because a big thing with Bullet is that they are trying to be as like renewable as possible, like using as many reusable sources and having zero emissions. So we start off initially where we go over a little bit of the history, but not a lot. It's a newer distillery. It's only been around for 30-ish years, and that specific site in Shelbyville has only been around since about 2016. So the original Bullet bottle was that one in the center. It's similar to everything else. I do like it. It gives kind of a pop art vibe. However, then they went to a graphic designer and he redid the bottles to make them look like medicine bottles. Again, going back to that kind of story of how whiskey was used for medicinal purposes during the Prohibition, and having that offset label is part of the branding, which I do find very interesting that Bullet has worked very closely with artists since their pretty much beginnings. It uses a high rye concentration. So when we're actually looking kind of at how they're milled, first section is of course corn, because you have to have over 51% corn, but then we have a lot of rye. It's over 20%, and then we only have about 4% of malted barley. And they actually also, with their products, end up having a couple of different mash bills. They have one that's a really high rye and one that is a slightly lower rye concentration that they will then blend together, and we could actually see where different ingredients from. They also, similar to Four Roses, actually effectively have 10 different bourbons that they blend together for their normal cocktail bourbon, because they have 2 different mash bills and 5 different yeast strains that we could actually smell the different strains. There was some that was like very banana-y. There was one that was like a very strawberry forward. And I had not seen it where you could actually smell the different yeasts before. It was very different. I liked how Bullet was super interactive. They explain exactly how the distillation process works, which is great, because usually what happens is they end up describing it to you, but they don't physically show you what all the different plates look like. So I thought that was really great, because most people are not chemical engineers. Then we also got to the tasting, which was a whole experience, because we were listening to mood music and we had different scents. Like that's what those tins are. So we'd have initially a sip, and then we would shake the little tins to get the different scents and do another kind of sip, similar to sometimes what will happen on the tastings, where you'll bite into like a piece of chocolate, then drink some bourbon, and then finish the chocolate. This was similar with the scents, and so we had all of these different like tasting notes, and it was very fun to have that full immersion. I think my favorite was probably the one that's like their 10-year, and it just, especially because they put those baking spices with it, it just felt like a warm hug, but also it was like 120 something proof, which whew. So that tour was fun. It was only 3 of us, and we're all women, and the tour guide was a woman, and it was just kind of this like girls in bourbon, which was great. They're also working through the bourbon tour, the bourbon trail. And in some cases, the tour guide was like, you know more than I do. And I'm like, I just know more about the other distilleries, but I don't know everything about this one. And like,
getting to try some of their different bourbons. Like I said, I'd had some of them at Stitzel and Weller. That's what it was that I'd had them. And right now I'm just drinking some coffee before I end up hitting the road and going to Jephthah Creek, which is about 16 minutes away, not miles away, 16 minutes away. So it's not far at all. And that'll be the last distillery of today. The trick right now has seemed to be make sure I bring chapstick and apply liberally, because what happens so often on these distillery tours is my lips end up getting really chapped, and so I just end up feeling the burn of the alcohol on my lips and takes away from the actual tasting. So I have now made it to Jephthah Creek, so last distillery of the day. Let's end on a high note, hopefully. And I was a little annoyed on the drive because there's no markings for where to turn into this random road to get on here, but that's just more on Shelbyville than the actual distillery.
Okay, I'm at Bullet right now, and even the bathroom is cute. This is fun.
So on the tour, the first stop was actually outside, and it was not super cold out, so that was fine. They had this barn and it used to be a stagecoach, I think, because this is an actual working farm still. They grow corn. They grow the corn that they use, which they specifically use almost exclusively Bloody Butcher's corn, which is a red corn. And in the background, you can actually see their rick houses, although these are not designed like normal rick houses. They are actually designed like tobacco barns, which are really common in Kentucky because Kentucky used to grow a lot of tobacco. And so I was learning a little bit about the farm, because this was about a 300-year-old farm that this family has been working on in Jephthah, which is actually Jephthah Knob is the name of the region. So one of the farmers, he is the husband of the master distiller and owner, and / also father, because it is a mother-daughter duo that owns the farm. The husband is a big car enthusiast, and so this was an actual Model T they had. They had a couple of antique cars also there, and apparently they still run. Also, after I watched a little video learning about the family history, specifically by one of the owners, the daughter, who is kind of the master for marketing, I saw the cats, and they were adorable, and they are of course named corn, barley, rye, and I think wheat. I don't remember if there's 3 or 4, but they were named after the ingredients in bourbon. And I told them about the cats, or the distillery cats Instagram, and the tour guide was and wanted to tell somebody about it, to be we need to send the cats in for that, because of course they're cute and mousers. And so we had also one of their their stills. Of course, again, they were Vendome. I only bring this up because this kept on being a conversation point, because it's Vendome seems to do everything, and it's I've only seen one distillery, or maybe 2, that doesn't use Vendome. So we had a couple of the different stills, as well as the spirit safe. They do everything pretty much by hand there, and like I said, a big thing that they do is the Bloody Butcher corn bourbon, which I have seen occasionally. This county used to be dry, but Jephthah Creek was able to actually take this still, which is, as they were calling it, a hillbilly still, and run it 24/7, and they were able to barrel the first bourbon for the county once it actually became a wet county, which was in about 2016. And we actually got to see the barrel that they filled with the bourbon, which it's only been opened once, and it was for one of the son's 21st birthday, which is kind of crazy. Then we actually went on to the tasting, and I tried the 4 main bourbons that they have there. So I tried their normal bourbon, which is actually a 4-grain, so that does include corn, rye, barley, and wheat. And everything but the corn is actually malted. And the tour guide was surprised that I caught that immediately as she's telling me the mash bill. And it was a pretty good bourbon. And the comment was this saved the marriage, because the master distiller liked the wheated bourbon, her husband liked the rye, so she made it together. They also had the wheated, which I thought was decent. It was not my favorite. So then we tried their rye bourbon, which I liked a lot. Again, they have just decided to use malted rye, malted wheat, and malted barley for any of the secondary grains that are used. 4th, actually, pardon me, is their red, white, and blue bourbon, which is using that same mash bill that was used for their normal high rye, but in this case they use 3 different corns. They use, of course, that red corn that I've talked about a couple of times. They use a white corn, and then the owner's husband, he has made his own trademark blue corn that's called Bruce's Blue, that is a cross of 2 different blue corn, and that one is really cool. It was really delicious. I do highly recommend. They also, that 5th bottle, I did not try it, but it is the employee pick. a bunch of clips just don't want to upload. I'm hoping that tomorrow when I go into the office, because I'll go in early, that I will finally be able to upload everything, because it's just not working out. Or hopefully while I'm sleeping they actually properly upload, but who knows, because it's like, and it's only a 9-minute clip, which is a lot compared to what I've usually been doing, but I'm like, this really should not be as troublesome as it has been. Yeah, I do not get what's up with this Wi-Fi. So yeah, I've just been chilling and not doing anything but reading a bit and joking, because like I've joked about before, I'm really into like Jason Todd fanfics, and it's because I like fanon Jason Todd. I've never really read the comics, but I stumbled across like the Tumblr posts and whatnot. I'm just like, this is fun. Like Red Hood, Jason Todd, fanon version of him is exactly up my alley. Very like brooding, injured, built like a brick house or a shit house or whatever that phrase is, just like massive man. And I usually get the vibe of emotionally unavailable. So Bucky, Jason Todd, one of my ex-boyfriends, all of that together. So yeah, but I hope y'all enjoyed this video and going on all these distillery tours with me. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!